Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most important combos in Python, and that is loop and lists. By the end of this video, you will understand how to use for loops, while loops, list comprehension, enumerate, zip, and much more. So let's get into it. So first of all, let's consider we have a list called fruits, and there we hold values like apple, then banana and cherry. Now the basic for loop is, if I write here for fruit in fruits, then colon, and we can print each fruit in our loop. Now if I save and run the code, you will see it prints apple, banana and cherry. This is the most basic way to loop through a list, one item at a time. Now let me modify this for loop and show you how we use enumerate in our loops. So now we'll cover enumerate. So here, as you can see, we are putting one value of the list inside this variable. But we can take two variables here, like index. So here it will add a counter to this for loop. So what do I mean by that? You will understand after the full example. So if you want to work with the index, you have to use the enumerate method. So for example, here I'm gonna write enumerate, and I'm gonna write the parenthesis and pass fruits into that. So now what this will do is it will add a counter to this for loop. So whenever it will put one element to this variable, it will add the index of that element in this variable. If you can remember, in our previous last videos we talked about the index, which is position minus 1. Means apple has the position of 1, so the index will be 1 minus 1, and that is 0. And this banana has position 2, so the index will be 2 minus 1 means 1. Now you will understand this if I show you the output. So let's use string formatting here. So I'm gonna write f, then double quotes, and inside curly braces I'm gonna write index, then colon, and let's also print the fruit as well. Now if I save and run the code, you will see it prints the first element index and the first element value, and then the second element index and the second element of value, and so on. So I hope you understood what enumerate does. It adds a counter, so behind the scenes it returns both the index and the value from the list. Now let me comment this for loop and let's see an example with the while loop as well. Let's take a variable called I, which is equal to 0, and let's write the while loop, and the condition would be I less than, and we can use the len method and pass the fruits list. Then what we can do is we can just print fruits, and in square brackets we can give the index. Here we are expressing index by I. As you can see, the initial value of the index is 0. So in the next line, what we have to do is we have to increment the index. So I'm going to write I plus equal 1. So now if I save and run the code, you'll see it prints apple, banana and cherry. So the key point here is a while loop runs as long as the condition is true. So as you can see, the condition, which is we are checking if I is less than the length of the fruits list, and then we are incrementing here. So after printing cherry, which has the index of 2, in this line the index becomes 3, and when it goes to the while condition, it observes that I is not less than and it discontinues the loop. So if you forgot to add this line, it will become an infinite loop. Again, let me comment this and move to a new example. So if I run, you'll see the output is empty. Now let's take another example with the for loop, and this time we're gonna add the break statement and the continue statement. Okay, so I'm gonna write for fruit in fruits list, and we're gonna tell if fruit equal banana, then just continue, else we're gonna print the fruit. Okay, now if I run the code, you will see it prints apple and cherry. But as you can see in the list, let me cut this from here and paste that here. Okay, so you can see we have 3 fruits in the list, but it prints 2 of them because in the first iteration the fruits variable holds the value apple. So this condition becomes false, so it does not go inside this if block and go to the else block and prints the fruit which holds the value apple. But in the second iteration, it checks if fruit is equal banana and it finds that it is true, so it goes inside the if block, and see there we are telling to continue the process, means do not go further and go to the top of the loop. Okay, and in the third iteration the fruit variable holds the value cherry. Now cherry is not equal banana, so it goes to the print statement and prints cherry. Now if you write here break, instead of continuing further, it will break the whole loop, means it will just print apple. If I run the code, you will see it prints apple, because as soon as it finds this fruit variable holds the value banana, it breaks the whole loop, means it tells the interpreter to do not do any iteration for the loop. Okay, let's have another example. Now this time, let's say we have a list called colors, and there we have values like red and green. Okay, then let's say we have another list called shapes, and there we have circle, and the second one is square. So as it will be a nested list, first I'm gonna write for each color in colors. We want to run a nested loop. For example, for shape in shapes, and I'm gonna write the print statement and string formatting. So let's print the color and then the shape. Now if I run the code, you will see it prints red circle, red square, then green circle and green square. So as you can see, the colors list has a 2 color. So in the first outer loop, when it is in the first iteration, means the color variable hold red, it goes inside the inner loop, and for the red value it prints to shape, means this inner loop also gets iterated 2 times for circle and square, and we get the output red circle and red square. After finishing this portion, it goes to the outer loop again. Now color holds the value green, and for green it also goes to the inner loop and prints circle and square. Now we will have a broader understanding of list comprehension in our next video, but let's take a quick example in this video as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna comment this code, and let's take an example of list comprehension. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write a variable called squares, and there I'm gonna write x star 2 means exponentiation, and then I'm gonna write for x in range 5. Okay, and then I'm gonna print squares. Now if I run the code, you'll see it prints 0, 1, 4, 9 and 16. So what is happening here? So as you can see, list comprehension is a short form of our loops. As you can see, in normal loops we used to write the command statements inside the loop body, but we are doing that here, and after writing the body we are writing the loop part. So this is shorter and sweeter, but as you can see it is kind of normal loop, but the loop body is just before the loop. As you can see, for x in range 5. So when you say range method and pass one number, what it does is it takes 5 values starting from 0, 1, then 2, 3 and 4. Now for each of the 5 values, so this will iterate for 5 times, and we are telling the Python interpreter to do exponentiation. So if we do 0 square, this becomes 0. Then for 1, if we do 1 square, that becomes 1. This is just normal mathematics. I hope you are understanding. And for 2, when we say 2 square, it becomes 4. As you can see, the output is 4. And for 3, it becomes 9. And for 4, it becomes 16. Okay. Now we will have a broader understanding of list comprehension in our next video. So let me comment this and move forward with the zip function or method, you can say. So we have the zip method. Okay. Now let's say we have another list called names, and there we have a list and that holds some names like Alice and Bob. Okay. Then we have scores, and that is another list, and score is 90, and then let's say 85. Okay. Now with the zip, we can work with the two lists at the same time. So what do I mean by that is, here I can write for name and comma and score in, and let me write the zip method, and here I'm gonna pass names and then scores. And make sure if you write name here, you have to pass the names list in the first parameter of a zip, or in the first place, you can say, because otherwise the name variable won't have these values correctly. And if you are writing score, means you are trying to access this list. So if you write score in the second place in the zip method as well, you have to give the scores list in the second place. So keep in mind that. Okay, so now I can write the print statement and string formatting, and inside quotation I can write the name, and I can write scored and just the score. Okay, now if I run the code, you will see it prints Alice scored 90 and Bob scored 85. So here zip joins two lists element by element, means in the first place it puts the first value of the first list, then the first value of the second list, and then next, for the second place, it takes the second element of the first list as well as the second list. Okay, I hope you understood the use case of the zip method. Now before I wrap up, I want to share a tip with you. So here, let's say we have a list called numbers, and that holds values like 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now the tip is, don't modify lists while looping. And what do I mean by that? So if I write here for num in numbers, and let's say in the loop we are checking if num mod 2 equal 0, then we're going to write numbers dot remove, and let's pass num. So if you try to run this, as you can see, it misbehaves. Modifying a list while looping over it is risky. It changes the list size mid-loop and can skip items or behave unpredictably. So the possible fix would be, instead of modifying inside a loop, what we can do is we can write new list, and then let's say num, we want to print num. If you can remember, we write the loop body first in list comprehension. So here, after that, I'm gonna write the actual loop. So for num in numbers, if num mod 2 is not equal 0. Then just write the print statement and pass the new list. Now if you run the code, you'll see it prints the list. So here we are putting every num which has not the mod result to 0 and putting each value inside this new list, and then we are printing that new list. And that wraps up everything about loops and lists in Python. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, where we'll break down list comprehension in detail.